Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Adi Lila 16:10. She deshe vipranam mishra tapana nishchaya karite nare sadhya sadhana. She deshe, in that region of East Bengal, Vipra, a Brahmana, Nama, named Mishra Tapana, Tapana Mishra, Nishchaya karite, to ascertain, nare, not able. Sadhya, objective, sadhana, process. In East Bengal there was a Brahmana named Tapana Mishra, who could not ascertain the objective of life or how to attain it. Purport: one must first ascertain the object of life and then understand how to attain it. Now there you go. That's one sentence that everyone can take to heart and mold their life. There's a way in which, without examining one's life or making a plan, one can be swept away in any direction. And our attention can be taken away for 20 years or 2,000 years or 2 million years. Because the material nature is endlessly mutable, and as soon as I abandon my own plan for going back to Godhead, then I'm caught up by default in all kinds of other plans, which will be enforced by the laws of material nature. So one has to be a little skillful to cheat death before death cheats us. And you have to have a little jump on it. You have to have a jump on the game. And one of the most important aspects is to plan ahead, plan your life. So I'll read the sentence again. Srila Prabhupada writes, one must first ascertain the object of life and then understand how to attain it. And this is of utmost importance because people, according to the various modes of nature that they're affected by, consider various goals to be important. And until one comes to the point of accepting the highest goal of life, it's considered by the Shastras that one has wasted one's time. There are many inferior activities and goals that one can work towards. But none of those end in a permanent or blissful situation. Ariya Krishna Paramparam Tata. They're a lot of work. Krishna, you have to work hard to get them. So it may look like you're getting somewhere. But the Shastra says, unless it includes the ultimate goal of life, which is to attain Krishna's lotus feet, then it's some imagined liberation, and one will fall down from that situation because it won't satisfy us. So here, this is a story of Tapana Mishra. In East Bengal, there was a Brahmana named Tapana Mishra who could not ascertain the objective of life and how to attain it. Last night we were in Palo Alto. People there live a better standard of life than probably 99.9% of the population in the world. It's about as good as it gets on this planet. And if you stop people and ask them randomly what's their goal of life and how to ascertain the goal of life, have you ascertained the goal of life, what is the goal of life, and how will you attain it, what do you think they'll say? Seriously, what do you think they'll say?
They'll say, we haven't thought about it.
Haven't thought about it? If I ask you, have you ascertained the ultimate goal of life and how will you attain it, what will you say? In one sentence or two.
The
Prema Pumarto Mahan, the ultimate goal of life, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, is
ultimate goal of life is to attain love for Krishna, and the
What's the
process is
practice?
through chanting the holy names.
okay. That's pretty good. Yes? It's actually very good. Yes.
Maharaj, yesterday I was speaking to my colleague who was promoted to a very senior person, and
He
he's
was
PhD.
promoted to where?
He's
Aloka?
promoted to a higher position in the company,
Oh, okay, company.
and then he's a PhD from Berkeley and all that. So when I started talking him a little bit, I asked, you need to think a little bit more than what you are, aiming for. And then he literally started, thinking, well, I never thought about it, and I don't know what is the higher purpose of my life. So I was just thinking about, as you're comparing about Palo Alto,
Yeah.
the person is brilliant, super brilliant, but then he agreed he wanted to read Bhagavad
That's a
Gita.
good point. It's a very practical thing. We met a young man last night who is from Uzbekistan. He's also going to Stanford. Very intelligent and very interested in he stood and watched the Harinam for a long time. Then he conversed with the devotees and expressed his deep interest in Krishna consciousness. And I could just see awakening intelligence. And even though he's at one of the best universities in the world and so forth, they're not going to tell him what it is. In fact, they're prohibited from telling what it is, because in academic circles, you could tell people all about the religion and God as long as you say it's a myth. As soon as you start saying it's actually true, they'll kick you right out. So it's very difficult, even in the modern academic situations, to ascertain what is the ultimate goal of life. People aren't also very regularly exposed to very high scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. They have a mishmash. There is a mishmash of writings about what is the ultimate goal of life and how to attain it. And oftentimes the conclusion is amorphous. It's very hard to tell what the ultimate goal is. And in the Gita, Krishna says, Klesha dikartaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam. If your idea of the absolute is avyakta, it's not manifest, your enthusiasm won't be manifest either. You won't have that drive to actually try to attain the goal of life. Therefore, it's important to ascertain it. In the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta bale chita nakara alash, iha hoite Krishna lagi sudrid manash. And that is that one should consider very carefully what is the ultimate goal of life. What is the Siddhanta? Siddhanta, what's the perfection? Is what you're studying, is what you're looking for, if anything at all, if you're not just being moved by necessity from day to day? Is it the ultimate? Is it the siddha, the siddhanta, the end of all perfection? Yeah. So he says, Siddhanta bolya chitta nakara alash. In considering what this is, don't be lazy. Don't be alash. Don't procrastinate. Take immediate action to find out what is the ultimate goal of life. It can be ascertained. It's not true that it can't be. There's a way in which in modern science there's this idea, which is a mistaken idea, that has evolved through the history of the divorce between religion and philosophy and science, that you can search for the absolute truth, but there is no absolute truth. That doesn't make any sense. That we're searching everywhere in the universe and doing all kinds of experiments, but if you bring up the absolute truth, they'll say there is no absolute truth. So why are you looking then? Who's crazy, you or us? So, Siddhanta bolya chitta nakara alash iha hoite Krishna lagi sudrid manash. If you take the time to ascertain what is the goal of life, and you scientifically understand it, from the Shastra, from association, from hearing, and by experience, then he says, Kaviraj Goswami, that your mind will become fixed. You'll become fixed on the goal. Then you can't be moved from your sadhana, your practice to attain the goal of life. So this is a story about a brahmana who didn't know what the goal of life was. How can that be? He's a brahmana. How can it be? Because there are many, many shastras. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that there are so many Vedas, and all of them, he says, most of them are concerned with the three modes of material nature. And one may grow up learning Vedic knowledge. Some families are called Trivedi, right? Because how many Vedas do they know? 3 Vedas. Yeah, so they may know 3 Vedas, but Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, Nirdvanvo Nityasatvasto, Niryoga Shema Atmavan. Mostly this is concerned with the 3 modes of material nature. And so many people study Vedas, Vedic mantras, but they don't know the conclusion of it. And Krishna says the conclusion in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha vedaishcha sarver ahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. That I'm the goal of the Vedas. I'm the knower of the Vedas. So if one doesn't come to that conclusion, then shrama eva hi kevalam. Certainly everything you're doing is a big, huge waste of time. That kind of sobers the mind, doesn't it? Gives one permission to exclusively think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ramananda and then Shraddha, you had a point? Better be good.
I forgot what I was going to say.
All right, Shraddha, go ahead. He'll remember.
Maharaj, I was just thinking in the context that you asked the question, what's the aim, what should be the aim in life? And then also you talked about the Harinam yesterday. So I was, we were actually talking about this in the morning. It's a shloka that we have to memorize for the Bhakti Vaibhav exam tomorrow. So the essence of that is that Sukdev Goswami says to Parikshit Maharaj that those who drink through oral reception, the nectarian pastimes of the Lord, they get cleansed of the polluted aim of life, which is material enjoyment. So I was just thinking that, that's what you guys, we do in the Harinam, that because we sing, then people who are walking by are drinking through their ears and they will get purified.
Yeah, that's right. And they were drinking with their ears and their eyes yesterday too. We'll talk more about that later. One must first ascertain, look up the word ascertain, the object of life, and then understand how to attain it. The Krishna consciousness movement is pointing out to everyone that the object of life is to understand Krishna, and to attain that goal of life, one must practice Krishna consciousness, following the methods prescribed by the Goswamis with reference to the authoritative Shastras and Vedas. That's all you need, that one purport. You live on that one the rest of your life. I'm going to read it one more time. One must first ascertain the object of life, and ascertain means?
To make certain, exact or precise.
To make certain, exact or precise.
To find out or learn with certainty.
To find out or learn with certainty.
And it comes from Middle English, certainin, which means to inform, give assurance. Also from Anglo-French, ascertenir, from Latin, certien, which is certain or certain. First, it was used in the 15th century. First known use.
It has to be precise. You really have to know where you're going. And any any self-respecting self-help guru in the world will tell you that this is important. You have to have a vision, mission statement in your life. Otherwise, you're just going in circles. So, as Prabhupada points out in this purport, the Krishna consciousness movement is just suggesting that people learn this, they ascertain through the facility that is being offered by Krishna, through the parampara, what the goal of life is, and fix themselves on that. And then they will have some traction in life. So here we're hearing about Tapana Mishra, who's a Brahmana, who didn't know what it was, even after growing up in a Brahmana family. One must first ascertain the object of life and then understand how to attain it. The Krishna consciousness movement is pointing out to everyone that the object of life is to understand Krishna, and to attain that goal of life, one must practice Krishna consciousness, following the methods prescribed by the Goswamis, with reference to the authoritative Shastras and Vedas. So, we got two things here. We have the sadhya and the sadhana. The sadhya is the goal, which is to attain Krishna consciousness. And what's the process? The process is given by the Goswamis. We follow the Goswamis, the direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they, for that purpose of guiding, for the purpose of guiding us, they've given many Shastras, including the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We can study that book and understand what is the process of devotional service. We can also understand through the histories of the lives of these devotees. They're not extensive, but they're extensive enough for us to understand the exalted nature of these devotees. When we hear from Srinivasa Acharya, who wrote his Goswami Ashtakam, Shad Goswami Ashtakam, describing the character and the lives of these devotees. And we can hear their exchanges with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu throughout the Shastras, especially the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We can develop faith in them. The seminar we heard from Radhika Raman 2 years ago, especially about Jiva Goswami, was particularly helpful in that way. To hear about how Jiva Goswami excelled in all aspects of not only scholarship, but also his way of dealing with the material energy. He was the one who started, apparently, the whole process of writing and leaving a will behind. That nowadays we take it for granted. It's part of the legal system. He started that in order to preserve the legacy of the Goswami temples, which he did. And in all aspects of his life, teaching and scholarship and ordinary dealings, legal efforts, and his own personal practice, he was exemplary. So these Goswamis of Vrindavan we should have faith in. You have to have faith somewhere. Somewhere you have to put your faith and say, I'm going to follow here. And then put your heart into it. And you may find some discrepancy at first here or there, but you have to ascertain that here's a person to follow. Follow the acharyas, and then give your life and soul to that sadhana, that practice that they've recommended. And one will come to the point of perfection. Text 11, if one becomes a bookworm, reading many books and scriptures, and hearing many commentaries and the instructions of many men, this will produce doubt within his heart. One cannot, in this way, ascertain the real goal of life. Purport in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.13.8, it is said, Grantan naiva bhyased bahun na vakyam upayunjita. One should not read many books, nor should one try to make a profession of reciting many books, especially if one is a devotee. One must give up the ambition to be a learned scholar and in this way earn a worldly reputation and financial facilities. If one diverts his attention to studying many books, he cannot fix his mind in devotional service, nor can he understand many scriptures, for they are full of grave statements and meanings. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives his opinion that those who are attracted to studying many kinds of literature concerning various subject matters, especially fruitive activities and philosophical speculation, are deprived of unalloyed devotional service because of their splayed attention. Because of what? Man has a general tendency toward fruitive activities, religious, ritualistic ceremonies, and philosophical speculation. Where did that also come up, that point, about how people have a natural tendency toward fruitive activity, mental speculation? Who brought that up in the beginning of the Bhagavatam? Narada Muni brought it up to Srila Vyasadeva. Because Srila Vyasadeva wrote many Vedic literatures, and can I see it? In the course of finishing all of those books, he was morose, wasn't satisfied. And he asked his guru, why? Why am I not satisfied? His guru could understand the situation properly and said, because you haven't actually given the essential point, the siddhanta that everybody needs to have. You haven't been precise about it. You've given so many paths to accommodate people who have material desires. He said people just take advantage of it. They won't. Although great sage, now Sri Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That's 158. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless. Now we're getting somewhere as far as the Siddhanta goes, right? How to ascertain. Then he says, although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with religious performances, you have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Vasudeva. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole world, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. This is a very heavy scripture, not just in import, but also just to hold in my hand. It must weigh about 20 pounds. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. That's something to consider. So, man has a general tendency toward fruitive activities, religious, ritualistic ceremonies, and philosophical speculation. A living entity thus bewildered since time immemorial does not understand the real goal of life, and thus his activities in life are wasted. Innocent persons misled in this way are deprived of unalloyed Krishna bhakti. What are they deprived of? But not just Krishna bhakti. Unalloyed Krishna bhakti. Devotional service to the Lord. Tapada Mishra is a vivid example of such a person. He was a learned scholar, but he could not ascertain what the goal of life is. Therefore, he was given a chance to hear Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructing Sanatana Goswami. Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Tapada Mishra is especially significant for persons who loiter here and there, collecting books and reading none of them, thus becoming bewildered regarding the aim of life. That's right to the point, isn't it? It's so easy to enter into a process and then stay on the periphery because of splayed intelligence. And there are many, many books, especially nowadays, just in a practical way, there are many devotional books that one can collect. As Shivaram Swami mentions in one of his writings, he said that these scriptures, however well or poorly they're translated and presented, are available in the cloth market in Vrindavan, Loy Bazaar. Anyone can go pick these books up. Who knows how well they've been presented and who's presented them and so forth. And you can just collect them and pile them up and never actually read them. But somebody who takes seriously the Bhagavad Gita, takes it seriously as the intelligence of the Lord, how would you like to enter into the mind of Krishna? Seriously, I'm asking. It's not rhetorical. No, I was saying, how would you like it? You'd like it fine, right? So there it is. It's available. The mind of Krishna. You can enter into his very intellect and hear how he thinks and what his philosophy in life is. Wouldn't that be nice? Yes. And yet the Bhagavad Gita simply sits there. Nobody reads Bhagavad Gita. You ask people after 20 years, how many times you read the Bhagavad Gita? They'll say, maybe once. And then they put it down. But if one enters into these books, just one book, what to speak of Bhagavad Gita, Nectar Devotion, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. Burijan Prabhu has been studying intensely the Bhagavatam for the last 20 years, and he's barely scratched the surface. Barely. So this idea of collecting many books and then thinking, oh, I'm a great scholar, I have so many books, and then maybe quoting from here and there, something that you read off the internet. I propose this, I propose that, without actually being able to connect all the ideas and without realizing them in one's own life through intensive practice of humility and service, menial service to the devotees and so forth. Practically it's useless, and one can remain morose throughout one's life by such a practice. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is recommending that one actually become practical. Sri Dayananda Maharaj was telling me how Prabhupada, he didn't live in a sentimental zone. When he would come in and offer obeisances, Prabhupada would be telling him his next orders before his head would come off the floor. He was not demonstrative as far as when it came to expressing external sentiments. His demonstration was that of practical service, forward progress in the pushing on the Sankirtan movement, and hearing and chanting and the association of devotees in the authorized Vedic scriptures. Very practical. The same mood as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now here comes Tapana Mishra, the great soul. And he says that Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Tapana Mishra is especially significant for persons who loiter here and there collecting books and reading none of them, thus becoming bewildered regarding the aim of life. That's funny, you got to admit, collecting all kinds of books and reading none of them. And that can definitely be applied these days. 12. Tapana Mishra, being thus bewildered, was directed by a Brahmana in a dream to go to Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is the Lord, the Brahmana told him, undoubtedly he can give you proper direction. After seeing the dream, Tapana Mishra came to the shelter of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, and he described all the details of the dream to the Lord. The Lord, being satisfied, instructed him about the object of life and the process for attaining it. He instructed him that the basic principle of success is to chant the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I'm going to read the Bengali because this verse is so nice. Just take this one home in your pocket. And the mind wants to go here or there, go to the cloth market of Vrindavan. All I need is 10 more books and then I'll become Krishna conscious. You don't need it. You need the Maha Mantra. I need to have full focus on what I have right now. One mantra. If I can do one mantra with actual sincerity, then I'll have attained the goal. So don't go here and there, mind. Stay here with what I have now and take full advantage of what I have right here in front of me. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the holy name. Bas. Prabhu tushta hoy sadho sadhana kahila. Nam Shankirtan koro upadesh koila. Prabhu, the Lord, tushta, satisfied, hoy, becoming, sadha sadhana, the object and the process. You got to have that. Kahila, described. Nam Shankirtan. What is that? What is it? Absolutely correct. It's chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, just as it's been passed down. You don't have to change it. You don't have to chant anything else. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to take what's actually been given by the Acharya system, passed down to us. Then you can attain it. It's simple. It may not be easy, but it's simple. Kantan, simple, kantan. Dan kantan ni narimas. And if you keep practicing, then gradually it becomes more simple. Kara, practice. And practice how much? A lot. How much are you supposed to practice? A lot. Yeah, you got to be more demonstrative. How much should we practice? A lot. Yeah, that's it. You have to practice a lot. How much are you practicing? A lot. Okay. That's the secret. The secret isn't millions of other books. It isn't traveling all over the world to various places or talking to millions of people on Facebook. The process is kantan. It's simple. It means take advantage of what you have right now and go deeply within it. You don't need to take permission from millions of other people. It's here in the Shastra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it very clear. What is it? Chanting Hare Krishna. So, Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Karo practice, Upadesh Koila, he gave him the instruction. Lucky for us, because we're getting it too. The Lord, being satisfied, instructed him about the object of life and the process for attaining it. Those are the two things you got to have. He instructed him that the basic principle of success is to chant the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There it is. It's in black and white. It's so clear and easy. Purport: the Krishna consciousness movement is based on this instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one must chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra regularly and according to the prescribed principles. We simply ask our Western students to chant at least 16 rounds a day, but sometimes we find that they fail to chant even these 16 rounds, and instead they bring many austere books and a worshiping method that diverts their attention in so many ways. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult is based upon the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya first advised Tapana Mishra to fix his mind on this chanting. We, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, must strictly follow this advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Prabhupada's with us. He's so encouraging that he says, we, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we get to go along with him. It's like, I'm in the Krishna consciousness movement, so I'm with Prabhupada. And he has the formula. 16, Tapana Mishra desired to live with the Lord in Navadvip, but the Lord asked him to go to Varanasi, Benares. The Lord assured Tapana Mishra that they would meet again at Varanasi. Receiving this order, Tapana Mishra went there. I cannot understand the inconceivable pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for although Tapana Mishra wanted to live with him in Navadvip, the Lord advised him to go to Varanasi. Purport: when Tapana Mishra met him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in household life, and there was no indication that in the future he would accept the sannyas order. But by asking Tapana Mishra to go to Varanasi, he indicated that in the future he would accept sannyas, and that when he would teach Sanatana Goswami, Tapana Mishra would take advantage of the opportunity to learn the object of life and the real process for attaining it. This is one of the great and beautiful mysteries of spiritual life, that as soon as one gives oneself to the process, heart and soul, then Krishna starts to unfold his plan in one's life. It's also instructive that Tapana Mishra was submissive to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though he didn't completely understand why he had to go to Varanasi. He wanted to live with the Lord in Navadvip. The Lord instructed him for his ultimate good. This we also saw when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was at Kurma Kshetra. Kurma Brahma said, I want to go with you. And Mahaprabhu said, stay here and chant. And the Lord has a clear idea of what the plan is, what his plan is for each living entity. And when I surrender to the plan of Krishna, then my life becomes easy and sublime. When I devise my own plan, inevitably material nature will go against it, and I'll become disturbed and think, why is everybody always against me? So the smart thing to do is figure out what the Lord's plan is and just follow that and stick with it. And all success is there. You see that even a simple but methodical and consistent approach to devotional service, wherever one lives, whether it's Varanasi or Silicon Valley, is ultimately successful. If one finds an authorized niche for oneself in Krishna consciousness, you find yourself what is the authoritative chain coming down from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you get some instruction, and then you hold on to it with all your life and soul and do the best you can to develop it. And it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in Wisconsin. You could live in Indiana. There's nothing worse than that, living in Indiana. Hope nobody's listening. Well, they know if they live there. There's no place worse than Indiana on the planet. And except for maybe, no, I won't mention any more names. But if you are in Indiana and you take this instruction and you follow the servant of the servant of the servant who gives you some indication this will be best for you to follow in this way, and you simply carry out that instruction throughout your life, you will become a great soul. No matter where you are, who you are, where you come from. It's a very simple thing. It has to do with consistency and integrity. So such a nice story about Tapana Mishra, a Brahmana who was bewildered about the goal of life. He had access to all kinds of information, but he was not satisfied and he was aimless. And then, because he was a sincere person, he got some direction. A Brahmana came to him in a dream and told him, you just go meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happened to just be traveling at that time, Nimai Pandit, in East Bengal. And he went there and surrendered to him, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him definitively, directly, authoritatively, it comes out in the voice when somebody knows what they're saying, that this is what you should do. And he took it, and therefore he became an eternally blessed person and entered into the eternal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who incidentally, as we know, later on took sannyas, went to Varanasi, and there Tapana Mishra had front row seats for the big event where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated Prakashananda Saraswati and all of the Mayavadi sannyasis. What could be better than that? Somebody's ready to add something, please.
Maharaj, can you just elaborate a little bit on integrity? You said consistency and integrity. I just wanted to...
Integrity, yes. Integrity comes from the word integer, which means a whole number. Not a half number, but a whole number. And it means you have to be whole. And to be whole, you have to be true to yourself, true to your vows. And not, don't cheat yourself. Don't drink water underwater on a fast day. And people are fasting, I'm dry fasting. And then they go to the river and they go underneath and they go glunk, 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 glunk. And then they think, I'm cool because I'm fasting. This diminishes one's integrity. And the thing is that it's an internal process. Potency comes from being honestly engaged according to one's ability. You don't have to act better than you are. All you have to do is sincerely do what you can now. And you'll be respected by everybody for having the integrity to follow your particular path according to your qualification. I didn't like the way that sounded, follow your particular path. Follow the path of Krishna consciousness according to your capacity. Sway sway adhikariya nishta saguna parikirtita. Krishna says, 11th canto, to Uddhava, sway sway adhikari. Everyone has a certain qualification. And if you follow that, sway sway adhikariya nishta saguna parikirtina, it's a good quality. It's good. This is integrity. To do what you can with what you have now sincerely. And then you will advance. You'll become famous. The maidservant, who is considered to be a non-entity in society, at Srivas Pandit's house, whose name was Duki. She was in the background, just doing all the grunt work, doing all the menial kinds of stuff. Nobody thought, here's a great devotee. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu noticed her because of the way she was doing her service, sincerely, not thinking I should be in the front row. No, I'm doing my service given to me, and to do it with heart and soul, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then picked her out of the crowd. Mahaprabhu does that. He sees the integrity of the devotee's heart, that I'm doing the best I can with what I have right now, and he understands our restrictions and our obstacles and so forth. And we simply are wholly true to the process of devotional service according to what we can do right now, then we'll have integrity. Yeah. Any other things? Yes.
I was just thinking how when you said that Mahaprabhu understands our restrictions and then he picks out of the crowd, but I was just thinking one pastime came to my mind how Digvijay Pandit, before going to him the next day, Mahaprabhu thinks that because he's a great scholar, if I publicly defeat him, then out of shame he would commit suicide. So, and then he arranges how Saraswati himself reveals. So I was just, this pastime shows how Mahaprabhu is very gentle and he understands our mood and our capacity and then orchestrates situations in such a way that we learn the lessons but not be hurt.
Suridam Sarvabhutanam, he's the friend of all living entities, the best friend, and the best kind of friend. There are different kinds of friends mentioned in the Shastra. Some of them are fair-weathered friends. A lot of friends, you go to the Rite Aid and you buy something and they'll say, "Hi, how are you?" And they're saying, "I'm fine, how are you?" And that's one kind of friend. Friend for a second, for 2 seconds. And there's other kinds of friends that are friends because they're obligated. Of course, they're kind of obligated, but sometimes family members and things like that. But Krishna's not obligated. It's just out of love. He keeps us maintained and gives us full facility, even full facility to do the wrong thing, because he gives us free will. But he's always there as our well-wisher and eager to help us advance in emotional life. What to speak of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because it's described how there are many different kinds of manifestations. The Lord comes in different ways, different moods at different times. But everybody says, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, this is the one that you want to surrender to, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's so merciful. He's not only our best friend, but he also discounts any kind of shortcoming that one might have and gives his full mercy to the living entities. And we're going to hear more about that in a few minutes. Thank you for bringing that up. That was very nice. Any other points? Yes. Our
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Kirtaniya. Yeah.
We're trying. We are all. Maharaj, yeah, when you said about Tapan Mishra being bewildered about after getting so many books and not able to understand the actual meaning or the goal, then I was reminded of the sages in Naimisharanya, because when they approach Sutta Goswami, they say, Bhurini Bhuri Karmani Shrotavyani Vibhagasha. So that shlok came to my mind.
Bhurini Bhuri Karmani
Shrotavyani Vibhagasha.
Shrotavyani. Yeah, there are many scriptures. We got the first canto. There are many, many scriptures that all have their various ideas, but you have, go ahead, I'm usurping your point. You please keep going.
No, I was just completing the shlok. So, sadho atra yat saram samudritam nishaya. So, what is the essence of this? Just take it out and tell us the essence.
Good point. Very good point. This is first canto, first chapter, 11th verse. Bhurini bhuri karmani shotavyani vibhagashaha atasadho trayat saram samudritya manishaya bruhi bhadraya bhutanam hinatma suprasidati. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. You want to hear the purport? Yes. But only a little bit? Okay. Atma, or self, is distinguished from matter and material elements. It is not spiritual in constitution, and thus it is never satisfied by any amount of material planning. All scriptures and spiritual instructions are meant for the satisfaction of this self, or Atma. There are many varieties of approaches which are recommended for different types of living beings in different times and at different places. Consequently, the numbers of revealed scriptures are innumerable. There are different methods and prescribed duties recommended in these various scriptures. Taking into consideration the fallen condition of the people in general in this age of Kali, the sages of Naimisaranya suggested that Sri Sutta Goswami relate the essence of all such scriptures, because in this age it is not possible for the fallen souls to understand and undergo all the lessons of all these various scriptures in the Varna and Ashram system. The Varna and Ashram society was considered to be the best institution for lifting the human being to the spiritual platform, but due to Kali Yuga, it is not possible to execute the rules and regulations of these institutions, nor is it possible for the people in general to completely sever relations with their families as the Varnashram institution prescribes. The whole atmosphere is surcharged with opposition. And considering this, one can see that spiritual emancipation for the common man in this age is very difficult. The reason the sages presented this matter to Sri Sutta Goswami is explained in the following verses. Very well done. Thank you. Any other points? Good, then we'll move on. You want to hear some more stuff, right? Yes.
In the same context, when they were doing this 1,000-year sacrifice, before Srimad Bhagavatam was actually spoken, all they were getting was smoke, and their faces were becoming blackish because of all this.
Yeah. I remember I did a Abhishek in Chicago when we moved the temple from, it was in on Emerson Street, and we moved it to the present location. We had to move the deities, Kishore Kishori, and the Shivaram Maharaj and myself were doing the Abhishekam. I stayed up all night getting ready the ingredients. We had so many ingredients that we used. But I just remember how practically every one of them I had a question about. Where did it come from? What's in it? It's really hard. It's really hard to ascertain. You do any kind of yajna in this age without seeing that things somehow or other are contaminated one way or the other. But the process of chanting Hare Krishna with sincere intention is always applicable and effective in the Kali Yuga. Kalir dosha nidhe rajan aste hekul mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrjet. That comes up in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. No? Yeah. And there it said that Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. So don't feel bad. But amidst this ocean of faults, there's one great quality, and that is by the process of chanting Hare Krishna, one can attain all perfection. That's pretty good, right? It's fantastic. Okay. So, looking at Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 10.119. What is that verse before he puts it up? 10.119. Madhya Lila, who knows? Okay, go ahead and put it up. Don't leave us in suspense for too long. We might have a revolt out here. Page not found. Maybe I put the wrong. It's CC Madhya 10.119. Helo dhunitakedaya vishadaya pronmilad amodaya shamyat shastra vivadaya rasadaya chitarpito madaya shashvat bhakti vinodaya samadaya Madhurya Maryadaya Shri Chaitanya Dayani Tavadaya Bhuyaramando Daya. So this is a verse written by Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. What would you give to have a verse by Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami to take around with you? what would you give? Okay, hand it over. I'll give you the verse. Here it is, available to us, these verses written by these intimate associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is one of them. Let's sing it together. Helo tu nita kedaya vishadaya pron milad amodaya shamyach chastra vivadaya rasadaya chitar pito madaya shashvad bhakti vinodaya samadaya Madhurya Maryadaya Shri Chaitanya Daya Nideta Vadaya Bhuyara Mando Daya. One more time. Shri Chaitanya Daya Nideta Vadaya Bhuyara Mando Daya. So here we have a verse from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most intimate associate, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. And here we find the qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorified. So Hela means very easily, Udunita. Udunita. Udunita means driven away. Kedaya, lamentation. Very easily lamentation is driven away. Vishadaya, which purifies everything. Pronmilat, awakening. Amodaya, transcendental bliss. Shamyat, mitigating. Shastra, of revealed scriptures. Vivadaya, disagreements. Rasadaya, distributing all transcendental mellows. Chitta, in the heart. Arpita, fixed. Unmadaya, jubilation. Shashvat, always. Bhakti, devotional service. Vinodaya, stimulating. Please repeat. Samadaya, full of ecstasy. Madhurya, of conjugal love. Maryadaya, the limit. Sri Chaitanya, O Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, Dayanide, ocean of mercy. Tava, your Daya, mercy. Bhuyat, let it be. Amanda, of good fortune. Udaya, in which there is awakening. Here's the translation. You can read it together. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation, by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service and glorifies conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. Purport. This important verse, Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 810, specifically describes the Lord's causeless mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in three ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he is always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands, and in this way a materialistic A materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord at such a time when is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. So one thing is mentioned in this verse is that, you were going to say? That in the material world, everyone is morose. And this is the nature of the material world and our interaction with it. We can never be satisfied. And even if one goes to the higher planetary systems, where things are a lot better than they are in Mountain View, they look better, they feel better, but still there's a pinprick. And there's this feeling of dissatisfaction because of not being connected to Krishna through pure loving service. So there's nowhere in the material world that one can actually be happy and satisfied. Agree or disagree? Why do you agree? Hansapriya's hand shot up. Okay, go ahead. Give her the mic. Let's hear it. Sing the blues back there.
It is more about blues. So I had a corporate party that had to organize, and part of that was put a music. And one of the song, music has its way to you. So one of the song caught my attention, and actually I thought, let me go play it again. And I played it again, and I was so much troubled by it because the pieces and beats of the song would go in my head, and I feel frustrated that, it gets in my head, but it does not give me the complete satisfaction. It made me feel so much more fortunate that I have a holy name, because each and every word can give me complete holistic satisfaction. But those little pieces and bits, nothing but just drives me crazy. So
that's a nice, that's a very practical, something that's relatable and that one can experience. We'd like to welcome all the devotees who have joined us online this morning. Please turn toward the camera and give them a Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Nice, Hansapriya, that was good. Very poetical, in fact. Little pieces. You can see the little fragmental parts of material sound put together in such a way that they're meant to be appealing. She's got more, too.
just to add to that, the song is called Piece by Piece, but it made me fall apart.
Yeah. Nice. Very good. Well done. Yes.
So I was hearing once, and the speaker said, well, in the material world, you have a trajectory which begins at pain and ends at pain. In the middle, you come to, as she was saying, a very flimsy ground of happiness, which is not substantial. And then on that, I think Bhurijan Prabhu was mentioning, and take shelter of Govardhan, because it is grounded. So you'll get grounded in a real substantial happiness.
Very nice. This is helpful. This is Sambandha Gyan. This means we actually have to become fully aware of our existential position and condition. And there's an interesting way in which one might be even aware of the fact that one's suffering, but still be attached to the situation and not want to give it up. But that means not being fully aware. Because when there's a full awareness that there is only misery in the material world and there's an alternative, then it's our nature to go for the alternative. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sadehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. If we can actually experience the higher taste, or at least intellectually understand that it's there. If someone presents to you a better opportunity than you have now in your professional life, you may test it a little bit, because what if you give up what you have now and then it actually turns out to be worse, right? Possible, isn't it? But you research it, you find out, no, it actually is. It's 5 times the money and half the work. And that you find out that that's verified. Everyone's smiling. Call up your boss. Bye. No more allegiance. And there's a way in which, through Sambandha Gyan, one can understand the anomalies of this material world are permanent. There's no solution to them. There's no adjustment that's going to make us happy, despite the advertisement that says eternal. What was this shop last night? We went by. It says forever flawless. Forever flawless. She gave me a little packet too to take home. I looked at the ingredients and it looked pretty bad. There was stuff I couldn't pronounce. Never put stuff on your skin that you can't pronounce. I was thinking that's a bad start for the Forever Flawless Corporation. Yes, and we have from the internet. Here comes the mic all the way up to Shraddha.
Thank you. I'll tell the name later. When you introduced this verse several years back, I fell in love with this. This is the Helo Dhani. As Daya or mercy is my only hope. Your servant, Dayanidhi Das.
Jai, Dayanidhi Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Okay, what else? Anybody else from the internet? Okay, text in from the internet. At least give us a Hari Bol. And if you're on the phone, then click in and speak up, because we'd like to hear from you. It widens the experience. Any other thoughts so far? Yes.
When you were telling about that Tapan Mishra's thing about chanting, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the success is chanting, I was just thinking of in Antya Leela, in the chapter of Glories of Haridas Thakur, Bhrigupati Prabhu once told me that actually. He told, there's a verse 3.100 actually. In that he says that how Haridas Thakur used to chant 300,000 times the name daily. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, they're saying that the secret of success in our spiritual life is to chant the Hare Krishna. I just read it.
And when you do, hold that microphone till it's actually touching your chin.
Yeah. Prabhupada writes, we can follow his example, however, by chanting 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra on beads every day and offering respects to Tulsi plant. This is not at all difficult for anyone, and the process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra with a vow before the Tulsi plant has such great spiritual potency that simply by doing this one becomes spiritually strong. Therefore, we request the members of the Hare Krishna movement to follow Haridas Thakur's example rigidly. So, Bhrigupati Prabhu was just saying this, and he was just emphasizing the word rigidly actually. He was saying that how if you just do this simple process of chanting in front of the Tulsi, you will gain a lot of spiritual strength, he was saying.
Yes. Strictly follow the simple path. Strictly follow the simple path. Is that Vrindavan? Welcome back. Let's welcome Vrindavan back. I didn't recognize you at first because you grew about 2 feet. Okay, now we have somebody else from the internet.
So first is Vinay Madhavi Devidasi and Anand Dasa saying Hari Bol to you.
From Alaska.
And there's a question from Dayanidhi Prabhu. Actually, I had missed it. He had sent it earlier. So he's saying, I like cheat death before death cheats you. How much to practice? Practice a lot. Can you explain more on what does it mean to do the best you can? Your servant, Dayanidhi Das.
What does it mean to do the best that you can? Well, it means that from moment to moment, or let's start from day to day, and then moment to moment, we'll have decisions to make. And most of the time, it's a struggle to make the right choice because of the force of contaminated consciousness from previous samskars, which may dictate to me that I do the wrong thing. And this comes up in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 3rd chapter of the Gita, Arjuna wants to know, what is it that forces me to do the wrong thing? And then Krishna answers, Kama esha krodha esha rajaguna samudbhava mahashano mahapatma vidyayanam ihavarinam. It is because it's lust. Is this some kind of a force in the universe, like the blob? There was a movie about this blob that would come after people and just devour them. So lust is like that, and it's born from contact with the three modes for the lower modes of nature, especially Rajaguna. And in the prosecution of devotional service, from moment to moment, one has to try to help oneself by taking shelter of Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. If you hear that before you start your day, you have a better than even chance of making the right decisions. What was this question again? What does it mean to do your best? And so you have to try to take advantage. To do your best means to try to take advantage as much as possible with whatever you have right now. And also don't begrudge the fact that you're not at a higher level. Just take advantage of the level you're at now and of whatever facility you have now. Do the best you can with what you have, and you'll get more. And if you sincerely try to apply that, then you'll advance. And yeah, Krishna knows your heart. If you try to do the right thing, even if you fail, then he'll help you. He'll help you anyway, but if you try to become sincere in that, he'll help you more. Anything else? Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue on this purport because it goes on, starting with, there are many different types of scriptures, and I'm back to Madhya Lila 10:119, and I'm on the second, there are. There are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way, one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss, accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. I mean, it's poetical, isn't it? We got to hear it again, maybe piece by piece. But first of all, there are many different kinds of scriptures. And last night, when I was talking to people along the pathway there, along the Marg, the Palo Alto Marg, I met different kinds of people who were influenced by different kinds of scriptures. And although one might argue that we're presenting a very non-sectarian process that can be taken advantage of by anybody, anywhere, I met at least one couple last night when I showed them the Bhagavad Gita. They seemed to recoil a little bit because the man said, "I'm a Christian." And I honored him for being a Christian, but still there was an immediate repulsion that he had. And we might notice that all over the world people have various ideas about religion and the process for attaining the ultimate goal of life. And they may even vehemently oppose people who have a slightly different idea. Even within the same religion, someone might have a slightly different idea. Therefore, you go up and down the street, say maybe in Dallas, Texas, you'll find a lot of churches, and they may have different names. Like, even in the same discipline, and I use that word, well, anyway, even in the same genre of Christianity, there are people who are opposed to the other, practitioners for various reasons, because they don't do it exactly the way they do it and so forth. So there's a lot of disparity when it comes to the idea behind spiritual practice. And there are many different kinds of scriptures. And Prabhupada says one may become puzzled. So this can be a problem, that people become puzzled by all these different options that they have. But, Prabhupada writes, when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way one is fully satisfied. So this is an important breakthrough for one going back home, back to Godhead, is to have these disparities resolved by receiving the mercy of the Lord. That's why it's important to practice, not just read various scriptures, although that is part of the practice. But if one receives a little bit of enlightened knowledge from the heart by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can see how all the Shastras are interrelated. One becomes Shastra Sunipuno, which means sort of a very wise person in understanding how the Shastras are interconnected. And even the different religious processes of the world that seem to have a different approach to the Supreme. Great acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for instance, would give examples about how it's the same entity that we're observing through the process. We're just looking from different distances and different angles of vision. For instance, a mountain, when observed from a long way away, looks like a hazy cloud. But when one gets closer, one sees it has some form. You can actually see the peaks. And when you actually get on the mountain itself, then you see that there's many features you hadn't anticipated. There even are people living there, or animals and trees and so many things. So according to one's proximity and familiarity, one can derive much more and see the overall picture very clearly, and is not confused by there being various scriptures in the world. He goes on, the transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. So this is an important point that Rupa Goswami brings up in his teaching about devotional service. Anushilanam, Krishna Anushilanam means that one must be favorably engaged in the service of the Lord. And the verb is shil. Shil means that you have to engage your senses and your mind. It has two meanings. One meaning is that there's a deep internal meditation on the Lord. But there's also an engagement of the senses. And there was actually a lot of argument about this verse after Rupa Goswami wrote it, which was, in our line, resolved by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who said that we should not just try to internally meditate on the Lord and our relationship with Him, but we should also cultivate, the word means, the kind of service that was performed by Rupa and Sanatan and the other Goswamis. But he mentioned Rupa and Sanatan in Vrindavan. Although they have their eternal forms in the spiritual world, they practically applied the principles of devotional service when they lived in Vrindavan. They were asked by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan and re-establish the holy places, excavate them, and also to write scriptures. Exegetical endeavors, Prabhupada calls it, means they wrote books. And that takes a lot of work. And especially at that time, it means you got to employ people in writing, and there's editing to be done. There's, even simple things that Prabhupada did as well, like getting paper. Prabhupada had to spend all the money he would use normally for eating on buying paper. And then he had to carry it, so he'd spend the rest of his money on the rickshaw that would carry the paper to the printer. Because he was following the footsteps of the Goswamis. They did that, he did it too, and he engaged us in doing the same thing, engaging one's senses. There is sometimes a misconception that real devotional service starts when all the sense engagement stops, and then it becomes just an internal process, and one retires. But actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, no, we follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis, and we're very fortunate to follow in footsteps of our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. The last thing he stopped, other than his breath, was his translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And think about that as an example for us. Say, when do you stop? And it reminds me, when we were in the yatra 2 years ago, and one of the brahmacharis started a kirtan on the bus, and it went for 2 hours, and we got off, and some of the devotees were amazed. They said, he just chanted for 2 hours straight without stopping. I say, how'd you do that? And he goes, well, nobody told me to stop. So there's practical engagement, and we saw it last night when we were at this mini festival we had, that devotees are all over the place and they're engaged. Their senses were engaged in devotional service. Did you notice we had 2 tables? There was one big table. The table's gotten bigger, which is really nice. And like we're turning into the Walmart of Hare Krishna sales here in the Bay Area. And then there was a small table over in the corner. We found in experimenting at Rath Yatras, the more tables you put up, the more books you sell. Some people had a theory that you'll cannibalize, and if you put up more tables, then they'll just cancel out the other ones. But we found that the more you show, the more you sell. The more you put it out there, the more people will take it. But it takes a lot of endeavor. Just setting up that festival last night is just unimaginable how much work went into it. All the devotees carrying that stuff around and then taking it down at the end, and where to put it, and how the things plug in, and how the lights were pointed. All the work that went into that process was what Prabhupada is describing here as using one's senses in order to push on Krishna consciousness. This is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give us this kind of engagement, to spread his movement all over the world. So then Prabhupada goes on. May I go on? Yes. Okay. Thus, the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifested in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. That just described the whole progression of coming to the ultimate perfection of life. And it's very optimistic and encouraging, don't you think? You feel encouraged? Yeah, what do you feel encouraged about in that? What part did you like? Gandharvika.
I like the part where there is a hope that all our lamentation would vanish, because in the beginning of the class also we said like how the living entity wants to get happiness, like extract it out of this material existence, and it's not happy. But all our long cherished dreams and material aspirations and everything will vanish, and then we can be determined in devotional service, and that seems very blissful.
I had experience over the last few days. I've been reading the 7th canto, and Prahlad Maharaj is instructing his classmates. They're just kids, but he tells them rather directly about the nature of the material world. And in it, he comes out and says, there's absolutely no happiness here at all. In fact, he said, the minute you start thinking about becoming happy in the material world, that's when you get distressed. And that's when all the misery comes. And he categorically denies any happiness in the material world. Just completely closes the door on it. And the experience I had from hearing that is that I felt enlivened. I felt that now I could turn my attention fully to devotional service and not be weighed down by the prospect that maybe I missed something here in the material world. Here comes the mic.
In some design schools, they have developed a course which is rigged to fail. Whatever you do, you will fail. And they give projects. Whichever angle you take, it's a failure. And then after the students come and they are just bewildered. What went wrong? I mean, there are 90 students trying from different angles and there is no success. And the professor tells, wait, it was rigged to fail. Then he gives a different understanding. So I was just thinking that this is how Srila Prabhupada is repeatedly indicating. I mean, no acharya, no statement in Bhagavatam says, well, there's 0.05%. No, it's not there. So that we can start looking. And another point which I really liked is that it doesn't end on a low note. There is a high note of solution also. Like many other traditions would say, well, it's bad, just end the desire, like that. But here there's a solution. So it ends on a high note.
Yeah, nice points. And we got to get the URL for that school so we can make sure to get everyone signed up. Wonder what their transcripts look like. How'd you get all Fs, kid? Got a 0.0 average. Whoops, I went to the wrong design school. Yeah, Srivas. It was rich to fail? There's that verse in the 15th chapter of the Gita where Krishna tells how the material world's a confusing mess and we don't know how we got here. But then he says, cut it down and then go back to Godhead. So as we were just hearing from Harivamsha, there's a way in which there's a very positive solution to this conundrum of the material world. And that's also described in the further sentences here where it's the lamentation and desires, the lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. That's really a loaded sentence, isn't it? The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires. That's something like a sutra you can keep. And if you wonder at any time, you might notice sometime, I feel morose. Look up morose. And then you can understand what's causing it. This also comes out in a section of the Bhagavatam that I mentioned earlier, and that is Srila Vyasadeva was morose. Why was he morose? And Narada told him the answer, you're not Krishna conscious enough. That's it. It's a simple thing. As soon as you're not Krishna conscious enough, then you're going to feel morose. And as long as there's any tinge of material attachment, then there's going to be that feeling of moroseness. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replaces it in a practical way. He gives us something superior. What does it mean to be morose? Just for the record.
Morose is an adjective, gloomily or suddenly ill-humored as a person or mood, characterized by or expressing gloom.
Gloom. Anybody ever here feel gloomy? Okay, then he continues. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. The transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. And we can take it on faith in this process, because whatever preliminary experience we may have in devotional service will prove to be effective, and we can see how that works. And we can also understand by extension that these other proclamations about what will happen at later stages will also come to pass. It's so kind of hard to understand sometimes, as mentioned by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. If you tell a child about conjugal relationships, he won't be able to understand it. You say, someday you'll get married. You go, nah, I'll never get married. And there's a way in which, from the beginning stages of devotional service, it may be difficult to understand the melos. Or one also may have received, and most people do, some kind of little samples. They're little tiny capsules of this experience that one can get in the very beginning. Even the people walking down the street in Palo Alto last night who saw the holy name, and it's just such a feast to sit there and watch people's eyes when they come around the corner. That's one of my favorite vantage points, is being able to see people come, they hear the sound, and then when they actually come from behind Pizza My Heart, and they can see the setup. And then I watch their eyes, and there's kind of a recognition and then a double take, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and then they kind of smile, then they try to restrict themselves from smiling, and then depending on their personal disposition, they may become attracted to the books or whatever it is. It's very interesting to watch how people become taken in. But Rupa Goswami says that within that first exposure, first, second, third, doesn't matter, but within that exposure to hearing the holy names, that soul is getting a glimpse into bhakti. Because those vibrations that are coming out from the Harinam party, and that are transported through the written word in the books that we're distributing, actually have a profound effect on the living entity. Yeah, we used to chant these verses. Yada bhaso pyudyan kavalita bhava tvanta vibhavo drishan tatvandanam api dishati bhakti pranayinim. Means that even somebody who's completely blinded by material life, gets an inkling for bhakti because of hearing the holy name. So there's little capsules. Somebody gave me these little tiniest little capsules. You can barely even see them in your hand. They're full of peppermint oil. Have you ever seen these? I got to find where they're coming from. Somebody gave me some. They're tiniest little things, but inside each almost microscopic capsule, there's this really pure peppermint oil. And if you put it in your mouth, then in a few seconds, when the capsule dissolves, then it's more like a globule than a capsule, because it's round, to be more precise. And then the flavor comes out in your mouth. And if you swallow it without tasting it, then later on you experience this peppermint. And I just imagine how from this chanting and distribution process, these little tiny globules are floating through the air. It's mentioned in the Shastra, it's not so far off, that there's saffron mercy particles that come from the speaking and the chanting of pure devotees. So it's poetically presented like that. And there's a way that people get that, a little taste they can experience, because they are souls, that there's something beyond just the confusion of the material world, where there's no happiness. So finally, in the last paragraph, Prabhupada writes, in the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Next, by the Lord's grace, all misconceptions are vanquished and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. By the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. I brought up this point in another class about the word worship. Originally, the word is worthship. When you add ship onto an end of a word, it makes it a noun. And the original word is worth. It becomes worthship. Worship means that which you consider to be the most valuable. That's where you're giving some attention there because this is the most valuable thing. And Prabhupada's statement here, that by the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. This is a symptom of advancement, and this is what propels one's steady service and dedication to the process of devotional service as one becomes convinced that this is the ultimate good. And this is the definition. Shraddha Shabdesh Vishwas Kahe Suridhanishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. One is convinced that this is the main thing. I need to do devotional service, then I'll become completely happy. The Goswamis gave up inestimable wealth and position in the material world. Someone might say, how can you do that? And it says they did it in a second. They saw something that was so much better. They were completely convinced of its value, devotional service. And when one becomes convinced, you're already convinced, but when one becomes convinced about this value of devotional service, then what else is there to work for? Where else would one put one's attention? All other things that one has to do in one's life go on as just in an automatic way in order to maintain oneself, because that's necessary also. But one's heart and soul goes into devotional service and how to become more involved in devotional service. What do you think? Srivas Panda gave me a thumbs up. That's like a like. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna-conscious activities separate him from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. We rest our case. Here's the Madhya Lila of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I might mention. It's no small miracle that we actually have this Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And consider the fact that it was hard to find around the time that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was living, and it took him a while to actually get one copy. He was eager to get it, and it was difficult for him to find. Have you ever had that? Looking for a book and you couldn't find it anywhere? Any particular book you can think of? The Brihat Bhagavatamrita? That one? Which one? I know, I feel the same way. I realize that, when you have a physical object like that, it's got to move around from one place to another. It got held up in some dock strike in India. At least the copy's coming to America. April. So, yeah. Definitely. Hard to get a book, but much harder even back then to get the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought it to light in the way in which he actually took up the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the movement all over the world. He as Prabhupada said, practified. He made it practical, the teachings. He formed a Namahata system so that he was thinking, how can everybody get this? I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the order, so he said, let's follow it. And he did. And he also conceived of a worldwide movement. And he taught the principles that he had received from reading Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita to his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who also considered the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita his life and soul. It's well known and documented that he read it constantly And as he said, it was his solace in life. Solace means the devotee is always pining for the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by reading the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, one feels the presence of the Lord. One is in the presence of Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. And then Srila Prabhupada took it up. And it is notable that he was in a hurry to get out the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, he was in a hurry to do most everything because he came to America when he was 70 years old. And there was a limited amount of time. He's expressed this many times because his health was frail and he felt he could leave at any time and he wanted to get the movement well established. And one of the ways he did that was by bringing out these books. And he said many times that these books actually make the foundation for our movement. If we didn't have them, we really wouldn't have a movement. In fact, one great scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism who wrote the foreword, you might read it, it's a really wonderful foreword for the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. He passed away some years ago, but he was in another paper talking about, he was the world's foremost scholar in academia for Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and he talked about how an institution is a means by which one transports culture across time and geography. And he said in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, therefore, there are many different kinds of institutions. Soft institution he calls the Vaishnav literature. And he said the means by which one transports the culture of Gaudiya Vaishnavism across time and geography is through producing and sharing spiritual literature. And this was also, as you can see from reading his many statements on the matter, Srila Prabhupada's aim of the Krishna consciousness movement. So he brought out the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in very dramatic form, because he asked for it very quickly. There are a couple of reasons. One is what I just mentioned. Another one was there was a professor in Chicago named Dimmock who also specialized in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He was coming out with his own translation, and Prabhupada wanted to beat him to the punch. And he did, and he asked his disciples to produce the entire Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita within 2 months, which was, in the words of the managers of the BBT at that time, who were intimately involved in printing books and had invested heavily in more and more technology in order to get it done, and were very proud of the fact that they would be able to produce a book every month. And Prabhupada said, I want all books, and there was a 5th canto to be finished also. I want all 17 done in 2 months. And according to the head of the BBT at the time, who replied to Prabhupada, that's impossible. And then Prabhupada planted his cane. They were on a morning walk at Venice Beach, turned and said to this person, this devotee, that impossible is a word used only in a fool's dictionary. And then Prabhupada turned and walked on. And actually, to set the scene, Prabhupada was so concerned with the fact that his books weren't coming out quickly enough, he came to Los Angeles just to make that statement on Venice Beach at that time. He also called all of the GBCs from all over the world to be there at that time. That famous speech you see Prabhupada making from the Vyasasan, where he says, print as many books in many languages, that was orchestrated. He called all of his main leaders from all over the world, said, drop what you're doing and come here. And he made that statement in front of all of them. And then he told the head of the BBT there in Los Angeles, I want all the books in 2 months. I want them now. I don't want book a month. I want 17 in 2 months. And that meant do or die. And of course, the person he told it to was a surrendered soul. And as soon as Prabhupada walked on, he told me this personally, and I wrote about it in the book, that he saw the world spinning around him suddenly. And then he realized that it was spinning because there was a supreme controller behind it. the planets were perfectly moving in orbit, and he didn't have anything to do with it. And he realized, I've been given an impossible order, and how will I fulfill it? Then he saw it has to be the hand of the Lord behind it, because it came from the Lord's representative. So I have to do everything I can. And as soon as that thought came into his mind, that I'll do whatever I have to do to make this, to fulfill this order, that's when he started getting so much intelligence about how to do it that he became animated. And his gestures were so animated, he said, and he was speaking to his colleague at the time, he said, the two of them dropped behind the morning walk and were discussing it. He said anyone observing them might have thought they were mad because of the way they were gesturing and coming up with new ideas and having these revelations. And then they caught up to Prabhupada and his morning walk party and said, okay, we're ready to do it, but we need some concessions in order to be able to do this. And Prabhupada gave them all the concessions and so forth. So there's a great history behind the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita coming out into the Krishna consciousness, the modern Krishna consciousness movement in English. It's unprecedented. And the very fact that it exists in a form that can be transported is remarkable. And it is a foundational literature for the expansion of the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. To have this literature available and put in many different places all over the world. And sometimes people say, well, nobody could read this. Who's going to understand it? Prabhupada's response to that was, the day will come when they will be able to appreciate it. Don't think that just now, because people are going to these ridiculous political rallies and making fools of themselves, that things will remain like this forever. There are different changes in society, and people will come to realize the value of certain literature, at least even if a small percentage do. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was searching out the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Others, of course, nobody can compare to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he was setting an example and showed what happens, that others will be looking for it also. So one might ask then, isn't there great emphasis on distributing the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita all over the world? And the answer is, somebody took their eye off the ball because it hasn't been widely distributed. It's only available in a few places, although we have warehouses full and we can get more if we just ask for them. Within a couple weeks, if we say we want more Sri Chaitanya Charitamritas, they'll ship them to us. So here at ISV, the devotees have taken it very seriously, this legacy, passing on the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, getting it out there, making sure it's in many places all over the world, as many places as possible. So to that end, coming up to Gaur Purnima, we have these full sets of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that originally were written on palm leaves and then were transferred only in Bengali and then were translated out of the Bengali and now are available on regular acid-free paper that will last for 500 years and which can be made available to the world. So we're promoting this over the next few days. Take the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, sponsor sets of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and let's get them out there as much as possible. There is a lot of mercy behind that distribution. In other words, there's mercy available for those who distribute it and those who are involved in it. There are a lot of pious activities that you can perform in this world, and there are a lot of things that you can give your energy for, including money. But there's nothing as elevated as spreading spiritual knowledge. And I propose, as did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that this is the most valuable of all spiritual literatures in the world. He said that if everything else fell into the ocean and was lost, and the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita was left behind, then there would be no loss at all. So here are the sets for anybody who would like them. Just text in or call in. There's some minuscule fee for the books, so don't even consider that. It's insignificant, whatever you have to pay. And you can order sets, and the devotees are ready to take them out and distribute them. I think one of them is going to go to Menlo College. because the library there, it seemed like when we walked through the library the other day, practically the walls were screaming, "Where's our Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita?" And there's a lot of other places like that. And finally, in the last 10 seconds, I'm going to read you a purport to end today's class. It comes from 1189. And this has to do with the idea of working, how those who work very diligently and engage their senses to help spread the Sankirtan movement, cooking, doing deity worship, doing the cleaning, maintaining the book room. Anything else? Broadcasting. Anything else? Putting on the Harinam. Taking care of the kids. Preparing presentations. Washing pots. Cleaning the temple, I said. Going out on Sankirtan. All of these things, there's unlimited activities one can engage one's senses. What happens to somebody who does that? I'm going to read you. Are you prepared? Yes. You might freak out. If you freak out, use that door so there's not a stampede. Okay. 1189 from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, the Beta Kirtan pastimes. Here is Raghava Pandit, here are Acharya Nandana, here is Sriman Pandit, and here are Shrikant and Narayana. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur, honoring the personal associates of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has sung as follows. Prarthana 13. Gaurangera Shangigani Nitya Siddha Korimani Sheyaya Vrajendra Sutapash. One who is intelligent understands that all the personal associates and devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are ever liberated. This means that because they are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, they do not belong to this material world. One who is engaged in the Lord's devotional service 24 hours daily and never forgets the Lord is called Nitya Siddha. Srila Rupa Goswami confirms this statement. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikilapyasya vastastu jivan mukta sa uchite. A person acting in the service of Krishna with body, mind, intelligence, and words is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. From the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 1-187. A devotee is always thinking of how better to serve Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how to broadcast His name, fame, and qualities throughout the world. One who is Nitya Siddha has no business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world according to his ability. Such people are already associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur says, Nitya Siddha Karimani. One should not think that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present 500 years ago, only his associates were liberated. Rather, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says that anyone is a Nitya Siddha if he acts on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the glories of the holy name of the Lord. We should respect those devotees preaching the glories of the Lord as Nitya Siddha and should not consider them conditioned. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan pramabhuya yakolpate. One who has transcended the material modes of nature is said to be on the Brahman platform. That is also the platform of Nitya Siddha. The Nitya Siddha not only stays on the Brahman platform, but also works on that platform. Simply by accepting the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nitya Siddha, one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Now, if that's not the best purport you ever heard, I don't know what is. Case closed. Vanchakalpataruvascha kripasanabhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. These Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets we're taking sponsorships for starting today, and we're going to place them in academic institutions so that the great scholars of the world can stumble upon them and realize what they've been missing their whole lives, which is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the cost is what, $400 each? Anybody help me out on that? $399? How much? $0.99. So, are you serious? You're sure about that? You're not going to get in trouble later, right? Okay, it's $100 per set, and if it's more than that, Srivas Pandit Prabhu will make up for it. He's got his checkbook here. He'll write a check for the total. So everyone can take sets, sponsor sets, and we'll help to set a trend all over the world for distributing this very, very important book, getting it out there. And this could be your claim to fame, that you have this in your portfolio at the end of life. What did he or she do? Oh, they distributed Sri Chaitanya. Okay, that's it. Fine, they're in. Go ahead. Hare Krishna. Thank you to everyone who joined us online. And now we're going to have Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. Go Premanande Haribo.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.